Kim Possible, the crime-fighting heroine, played a big action-packed role in many of our childhoods. Though the series has been finished for well over a decade, it still has memorable moments that have fans reminiscing about it today. It also had a big cast full of characters that ranged from heroes to villains. And today, we'll be breaking down where these characters fall on the morality spectrum. I'm Teresa with WickedBinge, and this is Good to Evil. Kim Possible.
So what's the sitch?
As usual, we'll be starting with the most good. And first on our list is Ronstoppable's much-loved and non-furry sidekick, Rufus, the naked mole rat. Although many characters, like people in real life, show disgust at the rodent's admittedly saggy and furless exterior, Rufus has a heart of gold underneath. Even though sleeping 20 hours a day doesn't leave much time for heroic deeds,
It is essential for mole rats to get at least 20 hours of sleep.
he's quick to jump to action when he's needed in battle. He shows a strange aptitude for ninja training, considering his small size and, well, species. Sure, he's picked up some of his owner's bad habits along the way, such as gluttony and laziness, but ultimately, no one could claim that Rufus has any capability for evil, even his much more assuming future self. Kim Possible herself is next up on our list. As our primary heroine and the eponymous character of the series, it's no surprise that she ranks pretty high on the good scale. She's a highly competent hero, and when it comes to the important life or death matters, she has an on-point moral compass.
It's the least I can do after you saved me in that hurricane.
Of course, Kim has her flaws. She can be bossy
Hustle! I'll be back as soon as I can.
and a perfectionist,
Okay, team. That should be about enough.
and is also prone to bouts of self-depreciation that can cause her to lash out at friends and family.
Mom, reassure me. I just had a fight with Ron.
But that comes with the territory of being a teenage girl, and the moral of each episode is her overcoming any obstacle in her way to come out triumphant, doing the right thing. It would be hard to fault her for anything she struggles with on the way there. And Kim is quite literally a hero in every sense of the word. Brave, courageous, and loyal, she deserves her spot so high on the good list. Closely followed is Kim's loyal best friend and sidekick, Ronstoppable. Similarly to Kim, as one of our main protagonists and moral epicenters for the series, you'd be hard-pressed to class him anywhere near the evil side of the spectrum. It's hard to even class him lower than Kim, as they're as tied for morally good as two well-rounded main characters can be. And after all, being a bit lazy doesn't make you evil. However, his tendency towards obsessions have landed him and his friends in some rough spots from time to time. His obsession with his haircut led him to thoughtlessly make a whole outfit change that didn't have a pocket for Rufus.
So there's no room for Rufus in your new life?
But worse, his junk food diet regimen in one episode actually turned him into a rampaging giant. Still, Ron is a pure soul without question. Next up is Ron and Kim's best friend, Monique. Part of Monique's placement has to be attributed to the fact that she's a rather minor character. She goes through the series without us even learning her last name,
I'm Monique.
let alone having any sort of moral crisis. She's simply a good friend, responsible and highly loyal to Kim and Ron, and mostly works to be the voice of reason in their own personal dilemma and interpersonal conflicts.
Monique, you were totally right. I know.
Though she can be quite blunt about it sometimes, such as losing her patience with Ron's laziness.
What system? You did nothing!
It's generally the kick her friends need to get back to their A-game, making any sort of jab benevolent in the long run. And Possible is next on our list, and fundamentally her role is as Kim's mother. She doesn't play a huge or active role in the series,
What's the matter, Kimmy? School or villains?
but as a parental figure, her impact on Kim is paramount.
No, but I might work in and I told you so.
She's shown to have a cheerful disposition and be a generally compassionate parent, even if she's embarrassed Kim on occasion.
Mom, you don't have me on speaker again, do you?
Hi, Kim!
Mom!
To her daughter's mortification. She's shown to have a fiery temper too, and many characters have almost ended up on the opposing end of her wrath.
I'll show him danger if he doesn't get a clue.
However, as far as morality goes, she's a pretty solid bet for the good scale. The Tweebs, Jim and Tim Possible, meanwhile, are antagonistic, but with no bite. Anyone who has siblings knows that they're hard to deal with at times. When you're a teenager dealing with all those normal teenage problems, and you're trying to serve the world every day, your annoying little brothers can definitely be a nuisance.
We need a ride to the mall.
Can't.
Jim and Tim, like any younger siblings, often make it their mission to be as irritating as they possibly can to Kim. But considering they're kids for a large part of the series, and it's really exactly their place to be as bothersome as possible.
We're playing with stolen technology. Cool!
No one can really blame them for it. They're not bad kids. They're just, well, kids. James Possible is next up, a few down from the wife he's so devoted to. While as Kim's father, he plays an important role of steering her in the right direction and offering support alongside her mother when she's down. He's done one particularly morally questionable thing. If you guessed how he acted after Kim lost her memory, then you would be right. After his daughter experienced a bout of amnesia, he played a rather mean-spirited joke on her by tricking her into watching his favorite television show, something his wife admonished him for.
But didn't Kimmy hate it?
First time around.
While it may seem kind of harmless in theory, his daughter having extensive memory loss is kind of a big deal, and not a joking matter. Not cool, Dad. Wade is another important member of the main cast, considered Kim and Ron's communication guru.
Kim, we've got trouble.
He's a genius kid who completed college in 8 months as a 10-year-old. Although he rarely leaves the house, he's highly useful in battle and has provided the duo with most of their much-needed tech.
Next up, thermal imaging sunglasses. Wear them after dark at night.
Such as the communicator. However, he's also provided them with less wanted tech. There's a running joke through the series that Wade has at some point microchipped Ron.
Do you have me microchipped or something?
That's not important now.
A fact he never confirms or denies, but highly implies nonetheless. This is only one of the unethical things Wade has done. He also invented a love ray, so he could make Monique like him.
Oh, I don't know. You just invent a love ray that would make Monique fall in love with you.
Something that is undeniably a moral problem. While he may be the hero and get some passes for having the brain of a genius and morality of a kid, he's still easily the most unethical member of the team. Next up is the one we all love to hate, Bonnie Rockwaller. While by no means a major villain of the series, Bonnie is a character all fans can relate to having in their lives.
What's the matter, Kay? Too rough out there for you?
Her and Kim are constantly at odds in the cheerleading team, and she's known to have quite a mean streak, such as giving Kim a seemingly impossible routine to complete for cheerleading tryouts, just because she didn't like her.
Tin teeth I gave her a routine no girl can do.
She's shown to be rude and snobby, with a higher penchant for being self-centered than your average teenager has. However, as Kim learned when she was stuck to Bonnie's hip for a short period of time, not all was rosy in her home life either. Bonnie's sisters are shown to be just as nasty to her as she is to other people,
I got all the brains.
I got all the looks.
And Bonnie got the rest.
perpetuating a cycle of mean comments and bad attitudes. Despite her cold, uncaring attitude, it's easy to see where Bonnie gets it from and how it created her own personality problems. Senor Senior Jr. is a peculiar sort of a villain in many ways, seeing as he doesn't really want to be one at all. He shows very little interest in his father's villainous schemes and even less in following in his footsteps. Ultimately, Senor Senior Jr. is just a vain young man with far more important things on his mind, such as maintaining a nice tan and becoming the next big pop star.
I insist that you cast me as the villain in your new picture.
I'm sure all his fans remember his classic hit, "Quit Playing Games with My Head." Well, it's very obvious that he doesn't want to be a complex boy. However, morally speaking, he does get rather complex. He does, after all, participate in enough villainous schemes to get landed in prison. So his preference for more appealing activities really doesn't count for much in the long run. But if Senor Senior Jr. was an unorthodox villain, Deanne Amy was more so. After all, she didn't even see herself as the villain. While her profession and hobbies would lead one to classify her as a mad scientist, world domination or major destruction was never on the cards for her at all. She never actually wanted to rule the world, but her experiments on live, unwilling human subjects were unethical at best and downright insane at worst. Her dream was to create living cuddle buddies,
Every cuddle buddy ever made.
which, while sounding childish and a bit silly, is actually kind of creepy when it boils down to it.
I collected them all, but it wasn't enough.
Regardless of what her intentions were along the way, DNA Me proves that you don't have to want all-consuming power to be a villain in this series. And now we're on to everyone's favorite villainess, Shigo. When it comes to villains, Shigo is easily the most sympathetic one, despite not having a particularly heartbreaking backstory to speak of. Possibly this is because despite being on the side of evil and enjoying being a supervillain, she actually has a strong moral compass and rarely strays from her set principles. She's more competent at evil than Dracon, yet in many ways she's more morally sound.
Oh, no. You're not gonna jack some kid's wheelchair.
For example, she was against stealing Felix's wheelchair for an evil plot and resented being dragged into it. She also shows concern for animals,
The fish in the water that we're taking out of the lake, what happens to them?
showing concern for the fish of the Great Lakes when they were drained and scolding Dracon about his dog. On 2 occasions, she's dumped into a tank of dangerous animals and refuses to use her powers on them to free herself.
These things have teeth!
Furthermore, she even admonishes Kim for lying to Ron and her parents on 1 occasion. For a villain, she sure does have some lines that can't be crossed. Following is Duff Killigan, a Scottish golfer with a crooked twist. His signature move is his exploding golf balls, which he has no qualms with firing at adversaries. 4! He's a sporadically occurring villain with several harebrained and evil schemes. His main crimes include theft, kidnapped, violent outbursts, and other incidents of petty villainy. However, the most evil of all, perhaps, was making Ron and Rufus eat haggis when they snuck into his castle.
In my castle, nobody says nay to me dairy grams haggis.
That's a crime that no punishment is harsh enough for. Dracon is next, and is typically considered to be the primary villain of the series, alongside Shigo. When it comes to evil, he's pretty much the real deal. He's an evil megalomaniac, fueled by petty jealousy and a lust for power. It's pretty much the calling card of evil. He embarked on a life of crime after being mocked at a presentation sometime in college.
As gentle as a summer shower, no?
No. While admittedly this is not a pleasant experience, one might be able to argue this is a touch overdramatic. It seems his own bumbling incompetence is the only thing stopping him from world domination much of the time,
Shigo!
Right, settle, I'm here.
as the evil intent is definitely there. One of his worst crimes, however, perhaps, was the mind control chip he placed on Shigo, which overrode her personality and decision-making skills. However, she notably and off-screen gave him a suitable just desserts, considering he remained scared of her for all the following seasons.
Do you have any idea what listening to you is like?
Professor Dementor is up next, simply because he's how evil Dracon could be if only he were a little more good at it.
Victory is mine!
He has complex plots and schemes that actually have something of a success rate, and his team of henchmen are much more competent than Dracon's. He's also simply a better scientist. While he's not above stealing machines for his plans, he's also fully capable of inventing any himself if need be.
I'll take my invention back if you don't mind.
If potential for evil makes you a little more evil, then Professor Dementor is on the right place here. If not, then the gloating and maniacal rambling spiel he did with every starring episode definitely would be enough. Next, unlike his son, Senor Senior actually has somewhat of a penchant for evil. However, what makes it somewhat worse, in our opinion, is how it's little more than a game to him.
Ah, the life of villainy is most exciting, is it not, not, my son.
As a very wealthy man with few other hobbies, he simply turned to a life of crime to spice up his life a little bit.
I have an active retirement.
He never holds a grudge when his plots fail, and even outright refuses to kill his competitors, such as Kim, as that wouldn't allow the game to continue.
My feisty teen nemesis. You complete me.
This, coupled with his complete ignorance to how the other half lives,
You see, Junior, how awful it is to be poor?
leads him to be an unnerving sort of character who comes off much worse than some of the villains who commit technically worse crimes in our opinion. After all, evil megalomania is one stretch of the imagination, and rich men turning to crime and world domination for kicks is another. Moving swiftly along, we have possibly one of the most evil villains in the series, Monkey Fist. While this may come as a surprise to some fans, considering his villainous plots often revolve around the asinine need to gain some sort of monkey power to become Lord of the Monkeys, what makes Monkey Fist truly evil is the lengths he's willing to go to see his schemes to their fruition.
Throw them all into the volcano!
While most villains show reluctance to outright kill their enemies, or at least use secondhand death traps to do their dirty work, Monkey Fist shows from the get-go that he's willing to kill Kim and Ron with his bare hands to get what he wants. That, coupled with his deranged ape-like behavior, definitely makes him one of the most scary villains Kim Possible has to offer. And yet, Monkey Fist is not the last on our list. That's because our final spot goes to possibly the biggest backstabber of the series, Eric. Fans of the movie will remember Eric as Kim's short-term boyfriend, who turned out to be one of Dracon's infiltrating synthrodrones.
Actually, here, I'm known as Synthrodrone number 901.
Programmed to mimic human nature almost perfectly, he's capable of faking empathy and is able to woo Kim long enough to distract her from Dracon's schemes.
You want to know what my mission is?
Okay, what?
To take you to the prom.
Eric's reveal as an evil infiltrator was a twist not too unlike that of Hans from Frozen, leaving fans alike feeling as backstabbed as Kim was. And in our opinion, this makes him a much more personal kind of villain. But do you agree that Eric is the most evil character in Kim Possible? Or do you have a sordid theory about the wrongdoings of a much more innocent-seeming character? Be sure to binge watch our full Good to Evil playlist, and most importantly, stay wicked.